Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. Hope you're all doing great and welcome to this new video. And in this video, we're going to do a full market update. So we'll talk a little bit about the major news we're going to get tonight. I'll spend, maybe a minute or two talking about that and what to expect. I'll be live streaming as well, right? So there we will also talk about the expectations and we will cover the live stream and the press conference, which matters the most, but we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll cover that live and I'll give live commentary. So we'll start off with that. We'll look at fundamentals. We'll look at Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is showing some very, very interesting price action right here. And that is going to continue over the course of today as well. So we'll talk about that. I'll briefly talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum, or XRP and Ethereum, even though I think they are less interesting. And I'll talk a little bit more about Solana. There's some interesting things going on with Solana that I think you need to know about. So we'll talk about that and maybe some other altcoins, but there's no other altcoins that I think are very interesting to talk about right now. If you want my thoughts on some of these stronger altcoins, join the Telegram group or the Discord group. In there, I post an altcoin watch list every single day. Those are interesting. And yesterday in the video, in my middle of the day market update, I also extensively covered some altcoins that I like. But okay, let's get right into it. So we'll talk about Bitcoin in a moment. At this point of time, the fundamentals are relatively decent. Volatility index is rallying, which is not amazing, but gold is still relatively weak. And ultimately, I mean, yes, the volatility index is rallying, but it's maybe a little bit higher than the average over the last 3 months. But ultimately, it's not that much. And if you take a look at the equity markets, they are still incredibly strong. NYO was about 1.5 hours ago. You can see there's a little bit of a pullback, but maybe that's also healthy. So the fundamentals do not matter. The FOMC meeting though tonight does matter. That's in about 2 hours and 45 minutes. So that's 6 UTC, 6 p.m. UTC, or 6:30 UTC for the press conference. It's already certain that the Federal Reserve interest rate decision is going to be cut by 25 base points. That's going to cause short-term volatility, but ultimately that's priced in, all right? I saw some people in the comments talking about, oh, we're going to get a rate cut, that's bullish. So why would we not get a bullish reaction? Because it's expected. To be fair, even another rate cut in December, which is when we have the next meeting, is already priced in as well. If you take a look at the 10th of December, well, okay, not fully, but it's at 85% right now. So it's almost priced in. However, what matters is the press conference, all right? Will they say something about quantitative tightening or quantitative easing? If they're going to say something about that fiscal policy, then it's going to be the end of quantitative tightening. If they talk about that, that could create a bullish reaction. If they are going to be a little bit more explicit and a little bit more, what do you call it, clear about December, right? So that the probability of another rate cut in December goes up higher, that could create a reaction. And that's the key about the news tonight, all right? And that's also why I'll be live streaming it, so that while we're watching, I can tell you, oh, that's interesting or that's not. Now, when we're talking about Bitcoin right here, lower time frames is a little bit tough and not strange, right? I mean, yesterday in my video, I said, oh, I think a bullish breakout is a little bit more likely, but ultimately, you have to be honest. Yesterday I said we're waiting for a breakout that's either below 114,000 or above 116,000 right here. And we never got that breakout, and ultimately that turned into a bearish breakout. So yes, did I say I thought it was most likely that we were going to get a bullish breakout? Yes. Was I wrong about that? Yes. But did I have any money on the line? No. Was I prepared for the other scenario? Yes. And so should you. And I think right now when we're talking about Bitcoin, first of all, higher time frames still look good enough, right? Of course, we can spike down, but ultimately the daily time frame looks good enough for a move into 117.5 and 119,000, which is our first major price target. And I think the lower time frames as well. I mean, today has been relatively low volume. We still have some strong support right here at 112,000. Basically, the entire level between 111 and 112,000 has strong support. So I think short term, it's quite likely we'll spike down lower, but I do think we'll be able to find support, find stability, rally up to 114,000 and break above that in due time as well. Now, when that happens, we'll talk about that later, tomorrow, during the live stream tonight, of course. But ultimately, I still hold a relatively bullish bias on Bitcoin. And therefore also on the markets. Although I must say, like if you take a look at Ethereum, I think Ethereum is quite weak. And we spoke about that this morning as well, right? I mean, I think with Ethereum, you should be careful. And I think with XRP, it's also more likely we'll see a spike down first, before bullish continuation. Although I must say that XRP has been quite strong. XRP is actually quite, is doing quite phenomenal. But okay, altcoins. So what I wanted to talk about explicitly here is Solana, because Solana obviously had a new real spot ETF launch yesterday, and the data they've put up in the first day, we have to wait the second day, of course. That's been amazing. They've had $70 million in inflows. That's amazing. Okay, that's a lot of money. Like we still know that the Grayscale ETF is coming for Solana, and that's going to basically create a supply side crisis, because there's $100 million in Solana in the Grayscale trust ready to be sold off when it becomes an ETF. But if we in one day, if we get $70 million of inflows, that doesn't really matter. It's great news, right? And Solana itself, look, today on the lower time frames, you see some momentum. Here, if you look at this time frame, you'd say, well, nothing is going on. But like I said, the market has been quite tough today. And if you look at Solana has actually been able to get a bullish breakout here above 197. And like I said, fundamentally, if I see this and if this continues, I have to be bullish on Solana and its ecosystem. So when we're talking about the ecosystem, we're talking about Jupiter, for example, but also Jito, and maybe some meme coins, but I would be a little bit more careful with that, honestly. But those are my thoughts. I mean, like outside of that, there's also not a lot of altcoins that I would like to talk about too much right now, going into the FOMC. So I'll keep you updated on that. We'll talk about that later. But that is what I think you need to know going into the rest of the day and tonight. So hopefully I'll see you all tonight in my live stream. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.